Hi, I'm John Celestri, and welcome to SIOR Live. We're here on the show floor at the SIOR Spring Conference, and I'm really happy to have as my guest Kevin McGowan, president of McGowan Corporate Real Estate Advisors. Hiya, Kevin. Thank you for
John.
the time.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Good to have you. Want to talk about the prospects of disintermediation.
Sure.
It seems that the travel agencies have experienced it with all of the online booking sites that there are. Stock brokerage certainly has felt the pinch with all of the online trading. Now we have online funding sources. We have online commercial real estate leasing sites. With all of those competitors online now, what's the threat?
Well, I think the simpler transactions definitely face a threat. But the more complex transactions are going to need an expert to help evaluate the core criteria so that they can be completed properly. When you start to do complex transactions in multiple geographies, it gets beyond, I think, the attention span of someone being able to do something in 5-10 minutes quickly online. Most of these transactions we deal with are very complicated, have environmental issues, they have a context that isn't necessarily readily apparent because they may be the process of an evolution over multiple years.
Right.
And I think a broker provides the expertise and the context to complete some of these more difficult transactions.
But in the case of many tenants, users, they don't know what you do or how you do it. They just want you to get it done.
Sure.
In the eyes of a lot of them, isn't the risk one of becoming a commodity? Because clearly real estate is not, based alone on what you were just saying.
Right. I mean, there's all these people here, and somehow they all make a living, or at least they pretend they do, right? So
they can afford to come here.
Exactly. There's a risk, obviously, that people don't understand. I think when you get into situations where something goes wrong and they've had a bad experience,
right, and
there's a complexity, then they start to look to experts. And as much as real estate, it's an alternative asset class, and it's quirky. It has subtleties to it that from the outside it looks really easy. It's like, well, there's a box and there's a tenant and we put tenant into box.
Right.
If it was that easy, everybody would do it. And it just isn't. And there's a lot of permutations. I'll tell you where the people really misstep as tenants. I see tenants frequently be their own worst enemy in negotiations. Because yes, they understand the moving parts. Okay, I need to sign the lease in this building, but how eager do I appear?
Right.
What are other deals that have been done in the market recently? What's the financial position of the landlord? What type of debt do they have on the building? There are a lot of subtle levers that are lost on tenants. And when you properly structure the negotiations, deals happen, and they happen in a much more advantageous way for the tenant if you represent the tenant, or frankly, if you do it on the landlord side as well. And it's understanding which levers to pull that create value. And you can create substantial value if you do the right thing at the right time. If you do the wrong thing at the wrong time, then it can be the flip side of the other way.
Right.
So.
Do you find that for those smaller, quote-unquote, easier transactions, that there is an impact to smaller brokers? You and I have talked a lot about the independent broker and the large corporate who may not feel the pinch, but what about the McGowans of the world who are not, successful, or not CBRE or JLL?
I guess, I don't know if I necessarily view it that way. I mean, I think we try to stay away from the smaller transactions that are less profitable, and we'll be focused on the ones that are larger, that are bigger, that frankly demand more focus. Right. And it's kind of a little bit of that David versus Goliath thing that happens where, I love to compete against the big firms because they're kind of all over the place. They're doing 50 transactions at once, and we'll zero right in and get the context of the situation. And really, we can do some serious damage because we actually, I go back to that point of understanding negotiations. if you don't have excessive numbers of people involved, and you control that negotiation process.
Right.
You can come in, you can come out, and there's never any time frame that says this real estate deal has to be done by tomorrow.
Right.
Even though they kind of say sometimes that there is or there isn't. There's always another building to go to. There's always another option or situation, and we create that leverage for people.
You know, it was interesting when I mentioned the risk of commercial real estate becoming a commodity, but you kind of hit the nail on the head when you were talking about McGowan against the larger firms, because really what you're talking about is service.
Right. Service and focus. Yeah.
Right.
Focus, expertise. I mean, you know, when you deal with myself and the other independents, you get someone who's a principal in the firm, probably a lot more qualified than the junior guy that they'll put down on the deal at some of the larger firms. And I think, you know, everybody we work with always comes back for more. I'll put it that way. We don't work with everybody. I mean, and we're not competing, you know, at the top level. But everybody we work with always says we can't. The phone keeps ringing. So,
as such sites as mentioned above proliferate,
sure.
which I assume they will, like we've seen with the crowdfunding sites. What do brokers have to do to remain relevant?
Well, I sort of have an interesting perspective. My father, I grew up in a real estate family, right? My father's 45-year career, Cabot and Forbes, Cushman, now he's at Cressa Partners. So I've heard about this.
Still active?
Still active, yeah. So I've heard about this business since about the 1970s when guys had index cards in their drawers, and then they moved to, you know, then there was the fax machine, which would disintermediate everybody. You got to be able to have some sort of relationship, trust the person on the other side. You still have to know what you're doing and when to do it. And everybody, as my father said to me the other day, everybody needs to be somewhere.
Right.
And you know, the game keeps going on, and there are new technologies that come into place, and the business definitely changes. You have to evolve. You can't like say, well, I'm not going to, you know, I'm going to, you know, do things the way I did in 1970, where I mail everybody and there's no fax machine.
Right.
But I think as a smaller firm, you can adapt more quickly from a technological perspective. Everything's available on the cloud. So where a larger firm might take a longer period of time to move to the cloud, we have everything on the cloud. We can buy national data sets rather than geographic-specific data sets.
So it's a question really of absorbing and embracing the technology is what I'm hearing.
Technology as well as data.
Right.
So technology just enables you to make good decisions, and then you layer in the proper data sets, whether that be lease data, sale data,
I'm sorry.
No, and just you can pick your data sets, and the clients really appreciate it, because if you actually have an understanding of some of the larger data sets that maybe some of the more limited, I'll use the word smaller guys, but maybe the bigger firms they have a narrower focus.
Right.
I think actually in a way, some of the way the larger firms are structured is to their own disadvantage, because they are geographically segmented, right?
Right.
So I think the whole business is ripe for a massive change. You know, the same way Uber changed the taxi industry.
Right.
You have large brokerage firms here that are set up on a geographic basis. Well, everybody knows that, you know, keeping in line with licensing rules, like I could do the due diligence on a building in California and figure out what's happening with regards to how to do the fundamentals of a transaction and negotiate it properly. I need a local SIOR to help me complete the transaction from a licensing perspective and a local market perspective. But I just think as these large firms consolidate, there's going to be less people in the business.
Interesting.
That's my sense.
Interesting. And what I'm hearing, again, it all gets back to service, taking the data that's available in the cloud and making it applicable to a particular client in a particular situation. And it all comes down to service.
It does. Service, and then, frankly, experience and understanding of what your client actually does, like how they make their whatever it is that they make. I mean, we don't really talk about real estate ever with people, because what am I going to do? Hey, John, tell me your lease expiration. You know, who wants to talk about that? You know, you want to talk about what you do, how you make money, how you want to grow, and if you start doing that, then the business will flow.
It's tough to find relationships in the cloud.
Yeah, well, you go out and talk to people, but I think technology can augment relationships.
Right.
Because it can make me can allow me to disclose maybe more to you that I would have otherwise. Maybe, in the old days, we talk on the phone, that's the only information you have available to me, but I can give you an entire data room on the deal if I need.
Excellent.
So I think it's about disclosure, transparency. That's our mantra. That's what we try to provide.
Very good.
So,
and it's a great way to end.
Yeah, thank you.
Kevin, thank
John,
you so much
always
for
a
the
pleasure.
time. Me too. And I want to thank you for joining us on Globe Street TV.